Well, good morning, YouTube. All right, guys, as you saw in yesterday's video, there were a few things that I really... Ooh, windy, hope that doesn't affect the audio. You know, it's about 10 or 15 degrees colder today, but you add that wind on top of it, it definitely feels chillier. It's about 40 degrees out, but with that wind, makes it feel like it's in the 30s or maybe even the 20s. Anyway, guys, like I was saying in yesterday's video, you saw that I replaced that brake relay valve on Goliath, and there was more stuff that I wanted to do, but we ran out of daylight. So today, I'm gonna come up and I wanna take care of the other things underneath the truck that I need to do while I've got it rolled up under the blocks and I've got the clearance underneath there. So we're gonna go in and adjust the brakes. I think maybe I'll do a short video on how to do a brake adjustment. Remember, Goliath is so old. Remember, Goliath is a 1987 GMC General. And back then they didn't have automatic slack adjuster. So periodically, approximately every 10,000 miles or so, I've got to go through and adjust the brakes. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that in a little bit. So guys, keep in mind, this is not a commercial truck anymore. So we don't put the kind of miles on it that this thing would have seen when it was in service. You know, up until 2019, we were running about 30,000 miles a year, give or take, running the rally circuit. But in 2020, with a lot of the rallies being canceled because of the whole coronavirus thing, we put a lot less miles on it that year. And then in 2021, we also decided to cut back on some of the rallies that we really weren't doing that well. So consequently, we don't have to do periodic maintenances as often as you would in a normal commercial truck. A lot of this stuff goes by mileage. Now that the rallies are less, we might only put 10 or 15,000 miles a year on Goliath, maybe 20. I'm not sure. I haven't actually done the math on it yet. So basically, there's a lot of these maintenances, like, you know, greasing the drive shafts, you know, putting the oil in the bearings, checking differential fluid levels, transmission fluid levels, so on and so forth. All that stuff can pretty much just be done at the beginning of the season, and they don't have to worry about that throughout the year, or doing it, you know, every 2 months or every 3 months, or depending on what kind of mileage an over-the-road trucker would normally drive. Now, those of you that have been watching long enough know that I just did the overhead service on it back in June, so that's good to go for now. We don't have to worry about that. But like I said, we're gonna do all this underneath the truck stuff. That way it's done and out of the way, and that'll contribute to my pre-trip when we go to head to Daytona. All right, guys, the only tool I need to do the brake adjustment on this is a 9/16 box end wrench. But in order to do the brake adjustment properly on this, you have to actually release the parking brake. So, very important, this is where it can get dangerous, guys. You wanna make sure you chalk your tires really good so that the vehicle cannot roll, especially here. We're on a slightly uphill grade because there's a drain in the parking lot down that way. So I've blocked 2 tires, front and rear, just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere while we climb under there and make the adjustment. All right, guys, down here underneath the truck, back in there, you can see the brake liner and the drum. You'll see there's a slight gap in between the liner and the drum itself. Now, I'm not talking about the gap between the 2 pieces of liner, but between the actual brake pad and the outer drum. All right, guys, and up in here is the slack adjuster, and you will see there's a 12-point bolt head right there. That is this piece right in here, and then there's a collar going around it. Now, that collar is spring-loaded. That collar has to be pushed in order to be able to turn that bolt. So basically, when you put the wrench on there, you're going to push in on the wrench to get it to fully seat over that fastener head, which will push in that collar. Once the collar is pushed in, you can then turn the bolt to adjust it. So on these brakes, we're gonna turn the bolt counterclockwise until the brake shoes expand further out until they make contact with the drum. And then we're gonna back it off 1/2 turn and then let the collar slide back out and lock that bolt, and the adjustment's done. All right, guys, now you'll see that that gap is probably smaller. That gap right there because now the shoe is in contact with the drum. Okay guys, so we backed it off to 1/2 turn, and we want to make sure that that collar pops back out, locking it in place. All right guys, you can see the process itself is quite simple. Now we just gotta go do that on every set of wheels, and we'll call it done. As you can see, we weren't that far out of adjustment. It only took a little over 1/2 turn to get them to seat, because it hasn't been that long since I did this. We didn't put a lot of miles on it last fall, but because we're starting a new year, just want to make sure we're good to go to start the season. All right guys, and as I was adjusting the brakes on the steer axle, I heard another hissing, so I have another slight air leak. And I tracked it down, but I'm not sure what it is, and I hope maybe someone out there can help me with it. So the leak is coming from the bottom. This device right here. There's a little valve on the bottom. And the hose for it comes off of here. It runs into this unit. Now this unit is just held in by this little retainer, and I can slide it right out. There is a decal on it, but it is not legible. The line out goes to another module that's on the firewall. Now that other module has a line in and a line out. Well, this line in and another line out, but it also has some electrical wires going to it. So it's obviously an electrical operated switch for the air, and that air line goes to the fan clutch hub. So I'm assuming the computer controls the other piece to tell air to go to it, but I don't know what this is. You know, it's shaped kind of like a pressure regulator. So my best guess was it just regulates the air pressure going to it. But I Googled fan clutch system Detroit 60 series pressure regulator, and all I'm finding is the actual switch that's over on the firewall that controls the fan actuation. So I'm not positive that that's what this thing here even is. So if anybody knows what that is or has a part number to replace it, because I don't want any air leaks, leave a comment down below, let me know. Well guys, never mind about that. I got to looking at it a little bit further, and that piece hanging off the bottom of it was knurled. But it was too tight that I couldn't do anything with my finger, so I went and grabbed a pair of pliers. And apparently it has a reverse thread on it, because when I went to go tighten it, it actually loosened up and it blew a lot more air out. And then as I tightened it back up, it sealed up again. So I still like to know what it is, because if it is something that's starting to go bad, I wouldn't mind having another one on hand to replace it. But I'm not overly concerned with this point. The leak has stopped. Well guys, I think that's going to be it for today. We're going to keep this one short. So after I got the brakes adjusted and figured out that air leak thingy, I checked all the oil levels in both of the differentials. I didn't record that because we just went through all that with Project Kenworth, so you guys kind of get the gist there. I also went down underneath with the grease gun and I lubed up all of the driveline joints on the rear. I still need to do all the grease points at the front and the steering and suspension and whatnot, but I ran out of grease, so that's gonna have to wait until another day. And I know that the wind makes recording terrible because it messes with the microphone. So I didn't want to get into a whole lot more footage outside of the truck, and just wasn't good conditions for recording. So anyway guys, just decided we keep this one short because of the wind noise. And so I hope you guys enjoyed it. And until the next time I see you, keep those engines running. Oh, happy Super Bowl Sunday.